Hi, everyone. I am Jason Schemmel. Welcome to the show. Here we have Michael Dermer. Just a little bit of info on him. Michael has gone through the roller coaster journey that is business and entrepreneurship. He has watched the business he built for 10 years to over 500 employees, the first company in the U.S. to reward for healthy behavior, nearly get destroyed in 10 days by the financial crisis of 2008. He not only survived that, but went on to sell his company and become an industry pioneer. And nowadays, Michael has built The Lonely Entrepreneur, and his team is committed to helping other entrepreneurs learn from his experience and turn their passion into success. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jason. It's great to connect with you, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me a bit about Lonely Entrepreneur. What is it about, and what can people take away from this company that you've built?
Yeah, so Jason, as you described, after I had built that healthcare business and watched it get destroyed almost overnight and built it back up and sell it, after I had sold the company, I wanted to get back to entrepreneurs, and I really didn't know what that meant. And I was just really struck by the fact that while entrepreneurship was so important to our society, we never gave people a map. And if you ask people, 100 people in Grand Rapids, Michigan, or New York or Chicago, where they went to learn how to be an entrepreneur, you'd get 100 answers. And Jason, I was a SaaS technology guy. And so I was like, why isn't there a platform? Like, why isn't there a one-stop shop platform for entrepreneurs? And it just didn't exist. So we built it. We built this thing called the learning community. And, we said to ourselves, if you created one thing that an entrepreneur would need to have a better chance of success, what would it need to have? And it was basically knowledge, tools, and support. So, on-demand information, 2,000 learning modules, on-demand coaching, and on-demand get your questions in real time. And so hopefully the idea is you can put somebody in there regardless of where they are in their journey and give them a better chance of success. And, obviously help people, so many people that are putting their heart and their soul into their entrepreneurial journeys, have a place to go where they can feel really they have a trusted resource to help them regardless of where they are on their journey.
Right. I mean, what you think nowadays is so useful, because there's, especially nowadays with social media, with AI nowadays, there's information overload. There's coaches, there's mentors, there's groups, there's everything. It's like, where do you start? Who do you trust? What's reliable? And everything just kind of comes back to something that you've mentioned before, which is like the struggle of entrepreneurship. And I've heard you say before that, you get two of the exact same businesses. They're going through the struggle of entrepreneurship and everything and building up a business, but they get two different outcomes. One succeeds and one doesn't. What attributes to that? Or how does one succeed compared to the one that doesn't, even though they're doing the same thing?
Yeah, Jason, you make a really good point. Even pre-AI, there was information everywhere. And, with the advent of AI, there's even more information. So it's not that there's a lack of information, free information. It's just what do you do with it? And you get different advice from different people at different stages. So the hard thing, Jason, you and I have talked about this before. You take two people that are starting a cookie business, and one's really good at finance and one really good at marketing, right? And they go into the business and you say, what do you do? So what you try to do is, number one, have some place they can get information right when they need it and get guidance right when they need it, regardless of their skill level. But then you try to also help them build some foundations of what's your goal, what's your financial plan, what's your go-to-market strategy. And we think the most important thing is what we call finding a playground where nobody else is playing. The world is so cluttered, to your point, that you can't just say mine's better than yours because nobody pays attention to that. It's really, how do I define a spot where it's only me? Jason, you referenced my business about rewarding people for being healthy. There were a ton of reward businesses at the time. There was Visa and MasterCard and American Express. We're just the only one that apply it to healthcare. And I think in this day and age, with this information overload, you need a place you can go to get help right when you need it. But you need to define that playground. So, everybody else is selling apples and you're selling oranges. And, what I described is easier said than done, of course.
Right. Absolutely. And so in trying to figure out how to change that perspective and try and find your own playground and your own area to work in where you're different from everyone else, how can struggling entrepreneurs, or maybe someone who's just getting into it, change that perspective and find ways to find their own play space?
Yeah. What's interesting about it, Jason, is we all believe that our cookies are great, right? Like nobody goes out there and says, my cookies suck. Right. So that's the problem, is you have to realize that it's not enough just to say my X is really good. We call it, at Lonely Entrepreneur, we call it the Saturn principle, right? If you were dropped here from Saturn and you started a cookie business or an accounting business, what would you say? You'd say what everybody says, which is they love our accounting services. Our clients love us. We're really cheap. We're always on time, right? So none of that works. You have to have that mindset that none of the standard stuff works because everybody says it, right? And so the whole idea is you have to embrace the journey of going, I can't just do that. I can't just think that my cookies are great and everybody will think that they're great. It's how do I go about a market in a way that's different? So I'll give you an example. There was a guy we worked with in Milwaukee. He did massage, really into it, really passionate about it, but really struggling to grow his business because, there's tons of massage therapists. And we started asking questions, and it turns out he did a bunch of jiu-jitsu, and he said kind of off the cuff, yeah, and I integrate jiu-jitsu into my massage. And we said, okay, how many massage therapists in Milwaukee? 1,000. How many that integrate jiu-jitsu? 1, right? And that's your playground. So it's not that linear, Jason. Like, it's not just you go, oh, here, I can find my playground. By definition, it's got to be different, right? And that's what the challenge is of being able to do it,
Right, which makes total sense because even though you're still, in terms of what you're offering, whether it be a product or a service, you can offer a similar thing, but how you talk about it, or even just adding just that little bit extra to it that, like you said, most people aren't, that can make all the difference, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think the real challenge, Jason, is because we all believe in our stuff, right? Because we all have passion about our stuff, we don't acknowledge this. They go, I understand that for everybody else, but not my meatballs, right? And if you take that perspective, the way you described it, social media, AI, there's always more clutter, right? And there is the Saturn principle. So you have to really kind of say to yourself, think of it this way. If I said to you, Jason, I have an idea for a business, you're going to get into a stranger's car and you're going to pay them to take you somewhere. You would be like, that doesn't sound like a business. It sounds like a crime spree, right? And that's the way it was the day before Uber. So you almost have to define your own playground. And unfortunately, defining that playground requires you to think completely outside of the box. If you said, listen, I have another toothbrush, the easy part of toothbrush is everybody knows what a toothbrush is. They know what they're supposed to use it for. They kind of know what it's supposed to cost. The hard part is that you're in a highly competitive space. The hard part about a playground is you're defining it, and it will take a little bit longer time to do it. But once you do it, you're the only game in town, and you get to define it. So we think that even with all the other things that I said, Jason, about the foundations, we really believe that if you don't find your playground, there's always somebody with more money, more marketing, more resources and capabilities that you have. It becomes very difficult to win. So to us, it's the most important skill you can find. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, I really couldn't agree more. I'm sitting here like nodding my head the whole time going, yep, that's right. That's right. So I know we only have a minute left here on this podcast here, but I want to end it with this. What advice would you give an aspiring entrepreneur or maybe someone who's just starting out their journey to help them find their play space? Yeah. So I think finding their playground and just understanding one other thing, Jason, which is having a skill is different from having a business, right? So if you bake cookies, you're a technologist, you're a doctor or a chef or whatever, just understand, it's not a bad thing, just understand that skill is different than running a business. And so you say to yourself, okay, what does that mean? What does running a business mean? And whether you work with somebody like Lonely Entrepreneur or another consultant or somebody that can help you, there's people that have been there and done that have run businesses, right? And so the things about goals, financial management, and go-to-market strategies, those are all standard things. So don't say to yourself, I'm going to go do it because my cookies are really good. If we just recognize that the skill is different than the business, and you go, listen, I don't know anything about the business, great. I have to now go out and procure those skills, whether it's through a consultant or somebody else that can help me or a partner or a friend that might have those skills. If people just had that realization, right, I think people would be much better off instead of just baking a lot of cookies and kind of blowing their life savings before they recognize that. Right, exactly. Yeah, instead of just saying like, just eat my cookies because I know they're good. I'm like, okay, big deal, right? Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, hey, Michael, thank you so much for your time and being on the show here. It's a pleasure to reconnect with you. Everyone, check out Michael Dermer and the Lonely Entrepreneur, especially if you're starting out, especially if you want this roadmap. He's a wonderful resource. I've known this guy for a few years. He knows what he's doing. Give him a look. Michael, thanks again, man. My pleasure, Jason. Great to reconnect with you.
You too. Take care.